Hello again, folks. Shane here with Shane's Premier League Prediction Show for Match Week 37. A bit of a shorter show this week, as I didn't get around to do my Fantasy Premier League predictions as early as I would have liked. And one game has already taken place this weekend, and that game was between Brighton and Manchester United. Brighton managed to come out on top 1-0. Deservedly so. United were absolutely dismal and got their just rewards, as did Brighton. They put in a wonderful performance, and midway through the second half, Izquierdo managed to find Pascal Gross's head, and the ball barely crossed the line, but it did, and that secured Premier League survival for the Seagulls. And as for Manchester United, they have plenty of food for thought ahead of their midweek game with West Ham United, as they look to bounce back, as the cup final is coming up against old rivals Chelsea, and much improving needs to be done between now and then if they are to have any hope against Chelsea when the FA Cup final comes around in a few weeks' time. Now, the rest of my predictions for the Premier League weekend are as follows. I've gone for a 2-1 victory for Stoke City over Crystal Palace, as it's a must-win game for Stoke City, or else they will go down. Bournemouth and Swansea. I've gone for a 2-1 victory for Bournemouth. Leicester and West Ham. I've gone for a 2-0 victory for Leicester City against West Ham after their horrible display basically last week against Crystal Palace. I didn't expect that. I went for a draw in that game, if I remember rightly, and the game ended up being 5-0 to Crystal Palace. It just shows you cannot tell. However, I expect Leicester to bounce back well this week with a 2-0 victory. Watford and Newcastle, both teams really haven't anything to play for here, but nevertheless I've gone for a 1-0 victory for Watford in this one. West Brom and Tottenham. I cannot see West Brom pulling off another result, and therefore they will go down. I've gone for a 2-1 victory for Spurs. Everton and Southampton is the evening game tomorrow. I've gone for a 2-0 victory for Everton. And then on to Sunday, I've gone for a 5-0 victory for Manchester City over Huddersfield. Huddersfield need to be really, really careful if they don't want to be relegated. They have tough games between now and the end of the season. They'll play Manchester City, as I alluded to just there, and then the remaining games see them take on Chelsea away from home and Arsenal at home. Can't see them getting much out of them games, unfortunately, but they have given a good account of themselves this season, and hopefully results do go their way. On to Arsenal and Burnley. I've gone for a 3-1 victory in Arsene Wenger's final home game. On to Chelsea and Liverpool. If Liverpool win this game, they will secure top 4, and therefore they'll be in the Champions League next season. I've gone for a 2-1 victory for the Reds in this one. There are midweek games coming up this week, as teams have to play games in hand. First up, we have Swansea and Southampton. I've gone for a a 2-1 victory for Swansea in this crucial relegation battle. Chelsea take on Huddersfield. I've gone for a 2-0 victory for Chelsea in this one. Leicester and Arsenal. I can see Arsenal picking up their first away win in the league this year. As I'd imagine, Arsenal would want to send Arsene Wenger out on a real high, as his farewell tour is coming towards an end at this stage, and I reckon his players will step up to the plate. Then we have Manchester City taking on Brighton. I've gone for another huge victory for Manchester City, 5-0 again. Then we have Spurs taking on Newcastle. I've gone for a 2-0 victory for Spurs, as they look to cement their place in the top 4, which I'm sure they will do. And then finally, the last one of the midweek games sees West Ham take on Manchester United. I reckon Manchester United will edge this one 2-1. So they're my predictions for this week for the Premier League. And finally, before I go, I'll give you my Super 6 predictions. 250 grand up for grabs this week if anybody is interested in playing. It's well worth a go. Bournemouth and Swansea have gone for a 2-1 victory for Bournemouth, 1-0 victory for Watford over Newcastle, 2-1 victory for Spurs over West Brom, 2-0 victory for Leicester over West Ham, and then there are 2 games in lower divisions this weekend as well. I've gone for a 2-0 victory for Luton Town over Notts County, and a 3-1 victory for Accrington Stanley. Sorry, excuse my pronunciation. Bit of a mistake there. Sorry, all Accrington fans. But I've gone for a 3-1 victory over Swindon anyway, so you should be happy enough with that, despite my terrible pronunciation first time around. That's it for this week, folks. We'll see you next week for what will be the final round of fixtures in this year's Premier League. All the best, take care, have a nice weekend.